And as Jim mentioned, the confessed shooter who gunned down that South Carolina pastor and 8 others wore symbols of hate on his clothing and car, including the Confederate flag. Authorities are investigating it as a hate crime, and we want to take a closer look at the lone wolf mentality and its role in domestic terrorism here in the United States. I'm joined from Austin, Texas, by Global Intelligence Analyst Fred Burton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Elaine.
Fred, would you say there is a bigger concern or growing concern here for homegrown terrorists and groups versus jihadis and jihadi groups overseas?
It's really an interesting question. If you look at what concerns law enforcement more, I would have to say that does come from the sovereign nation, the white hate variant like we saw unfold in the horrific shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. It wasn't too long ago we had a similar kind of incident here in Austin, Texas, where an individual drove and shot up the Mexican consulate here and then went over to the police station in Austin and also opened fire on the police station.
You know, it seems a lot of radicalization happens online these days with extremist websites and social media. Do you think the internet is too big and too vast for authorities to police? And how difficult is it really to monitor and shut these sites down? What is the answer here?
Well, as a former special agent in the terrorism arena, I think the real challenge is not just the internet, Elaine, it's keeping track of individuals that are predisposed towards this activity. For example, if the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force opens up an intelligence case on an individual, keeping track of that person 24/7 is a daunting challenge. The resources that it takes just to surveil one person is really the challenge. And that's where, if you look in the lone wolf arena, why these attacks are so successful. There's brilliance and simplicity when it comes to the actual domestic terrorist or the white hate individual. It doesn't take a lot of planning. All you need is access to a gun, and you can be very successful in killing people.
What has evolved in tracking people down? Have you seen this progress in your career? And what is the answer here? Is it more resources, more money, or just a different way of doing things? This process, I assume, has evolved.
It really has. I can remember a day when we kept track of individuals on 3x5 index cards. But today what happens is the FBI tries to get in front of these kinds of threats by looking at individuals predisposed that are on the internet that either wants to go and carry out an attack overseas or even in the United States, and they try to introduce an undercover agent to get involved with the person, to try to ferret them out ahead of times. But it's really a challenge. If you think in concept and you go back to these kinds of attacks, such as Sirhan shooting Robert F. Kennedy, that, in essence, is your classic kind of attack where if your assassin doesn't tell anybody what they're planning to do, how do you identify that person?
Fred, quickly, we have about a minute left. Would you say domestic terrorists attacked based on guidance or direction from a specific group, or is it more their own idea, the lone wolf mentality, as you said, as we saw in that church shooting in South Carolina?
It's more the decision that's made by an independent person, such as what we saw unfold in South Carolina, versus what we've seen take place today overseas, where you have the Islamic State make that call for individuals to go out and carry out an attack. The sovereign nation, the white hate variety, the leaderless resistance, which is what we've talked about here at Stratfor for quite some time, is the real challenge. It's very difficult to identify these people ahead of time.
All right, Fred Burton joining us from Austin, Texas. Thank you so much for your time.